Ammon Bundy now has a civil warrant over him and a bond of $10,000 after he once again failed to appear and respond to a lawsuit filed by St. Luke's Health System. This stems from a protest held outside the hospital a little more than a year ago. This is continuing to drag on after a child was removed from his parents for being malnourished and in imminent danger.
The Baby Cyrus protest was organized by the young boy's grandfather, that'd be Diego Rodriguez, and his friend, former candidate for governor, Ammon Bundy, who was, again, candidate at the time this was taking place. Days before, on March 12, 2022, when the boy was hospitalized at St. Luke's and Meridian, Bundy was arrested for trespassing because he refused to leave the hospital. Bundy and his People's Rights Network then gathered for days of other protests at the St. Luke's in Boise, claiming the boy was medically kidnapped by doctors and Child Protective Services.
The protests became aggressive enough that St. Luke's went into lockdown for nearly 2 hours on March 15th. They had to divert patients to other providers, and they actually refused to let visitors into the hospital. St. Luke's and two of its doctors filed a lawsuit on May 11th of last year against Bundy and his campaign and the People's Rights Network. They also named Diego Rodriguez and his Freedom Man Press and Freedom Man Political Action Committee in that suit. They claimed there was a concerted effort to disrupt hospital business, and Bundy and Rodriguez made false statements about CPS as well as the hospital. And because of this, staff was attacked online. St. Luke's wants to stop this harassment and get the false and defamatory material posted online taken down, neither of which have happened.
Right, which is why attorneys for St. Luke's filed a motion for contempt back in February of this year. A district judge also allowed them to ask for punitive damages of $7.5 million. So during this time, other than pleading guilty to the original charge of trespass at that St. Luke's and Meridian, Ammon Bundy has refused to show up or participate in any of the proceedings related to this lawsuit. And it's gotten to the point where Sheriff Donnie Wonder, the sheriff of Gem County, where Bundy lives, has refused to participate in serving process papers to Bundy out of fear. So yesterday, St. Luke's filed a writ of mandamus, taking the issue directly to the state Supreme Court to get the Gem County Sheriff's Office to do its duty, which is required by Idaho Code to deliver all civil court paperwork. And that would include notice of liens, evictions, and lawsuits. So while they waited for the decision on that matter, St. Luke's attorney, Eric Stidham, sat down with us to explain how the case got to this point.
We allege in the complaint that Bundy is involved in really a grift, that he's a conflict entrepreneur and he makes money out of marketing these controversies. We strongly believe that while there was a serious incident with this infant that desperately needed medical care, Bundy, Rodriguez, and PRN took that tragic circumstance and turned it into a money-making operation. They ginned up a false conspiracy. They marketed it aggressively. They continue to market it to this day. And we believe that the motivation behind all of it is money. And that's why we call it a grift.
A couple times there have been hearings on this case. It's a civil case, but there have been hearings at court where he has just not shown up. Is that correct?
Yes. Mr. Bundy has never shown up for any of the proceedings, and there's been many.
And so in order to notify him that he must be in court or must answer these questions or even show up for a deposition, you guys have to notify him of this.
That's correct. And it's multiplied based on the fact that he's continuing to harass folks, we believe, and continuing to take wrongful actions, which then precipitate us making another motion to the court to try and get relief. So it's a cycle that we believe Mr. Bundy has created by not showing up and by continuing to act wrongfully.
By continuing, Stidham says, to post pictures and names of those involved in the Baby Cyrus incident online. Like on this website run by the child's grandfather, Diego Rodriguez, who's also named in the lawsuit. The other wrinkle to this is in serving all of these papers, you guys have to use the sheriff's office, Gem County Sheriff's Office.
The first problem is, given Mr. Bundy's nature, there's only a small number of private process servers who are willing to take this on from the outset.
What do you mean his nature?
Well, the fact that he threatens and the fact that he doxes. So they're threatened by that, and also threatened by the fact that the man has a history of violent confrontation. So we had a small subset of process servers who were willing to take on the task. And we, of course, used them initially. But some fell out because Bundy threatened them. And then some fell out because Bundy made trespass complaints to the sheriff. Then we did use the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office did help us with process serving. About a week ago, when Mr. Bundy was served with papers by the deputies at the sheriff's office, that became very confrontational.
Which led to this letter from last week, written by the Gem County Sheriff. Sheriff Donnie Wonder said he spoke with Bundy by phone on April 10th, and he told him he felt threatened by all the papers being served on him, and he believes Bundy is at his breaking point. And because of that, Sheriff Wonder says there's a potential for someone getting hurt, a risk he wasn't willing to take over a civil issue.
His concern was for the safety of his deputies, and he took the position that he was no longer going to be assisting in this.
When you don't have access to a private entity to serve these papers, that's kind of the sheriff's job, right?
Well, it's the sheriff's job regardless of whether you have access. That's a statutory duty that's assigned to the sheriff.
So when you see the sheriff say, out of fear of safety, I mean, is that unusual?
It is unusual, and I'll say my clients are very sympathetic to that because we do believe Bundy is violent. But our perspective is, while the sheriff's concerns are legitimate, that his statutory duty requires him to do this, we have the right to proceed in the legal process against Mr. Bundy. And also, given the risk of violence with Mr. Bundy, it should be the sheriff that's handling this.
I've read some of Bundy's stuff, even recently. I mean, he claims he's not a violent person.
He says he's not a violent person, but he'll say something like, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not a violent man, but I'm at my breaking point. There was one video he posted relating to our lawsuit.
And I haven't responded one bit to them. And I have my reasons for not, and we talked about it if you're interested, but I haven't responded. I just throw it right in the garbage. But then they have like servers that come here all the time knocking on the door serving papers. They have the Gem County Sheriff's Department coming here all the time knocking, and now they're using FedEx to make deliveries. It's crazy. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This is one time to the mail. This happens multiple times a week.
Where he said, you know, I'm not a violent man, but if you try and come and collect your money, you're going to meet me and my friends with shotguns.
Bundy said this in an interview with the blog Idaho Dispatch.
And if I have to, meet him on the front door with my, friends and shotgun, I'll do that, right? They're not going to take my property.
So you can see why the Gem County Sheriff might be a bit reluctant to visit Bundy again. Yeah. And while we wait to see what the Supreme Court has to say about that, there was this contempt hearing today in Ada County. Once again, Bundy didn't show up, and Judge Lynn Norton agreed there was enough to issue the warrant to bring him in and set his bail at $10,000.
Bundy did respond to a couple of questions today from us, though, after that warrant was issued. He told Brian that St. Luke's is using the courts to punish him for standing up for baby Cyrus and his family, saying, quote, "They don't want money, they want to destroy me," to which Eric Stidham responded, "This is about Bundy continuing to harass witnesses and parties in this lawsuit. They want Bundy held accountable for the damage and harm he's caused, and they say they want to expose his grift to a jury."
Okay, so the question remains, who will bring in Bundy now that this bond is out there? Well, that is yet to be determined. But if that responsibility falls on the Gem County Sheriff, I guess the question is, I wonder how that might go.
Yeah.
We did try to ask Sheriff Wonder about this today, but he wouldn't comment due to pending litigation.